Ta-da! Hello, Alice.
Hello, Tim.
Welcome to the listening. So, what a beautiful view to see there amongst your bluebells and newly opening leaves. What's that tree just behind you, the thin one? I can't quite see.
Looks like hazel.
Hazel, yeah.
Yeah, my attention's focused on what I'm doing. I could be wrong. I'm not accessing that part of my.
Yeah. No, when you said it, it seemed about right from here.
Yeah,
It's just far away.
it's not as some hazels.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
I love that. There's that wonderful colour or colours you get in the leaves when they're just opened up. That very greeny, but sort of mixed with kind of bronze and coppery and slightly red. And there's something about that and the bluebells and I don't know, do you have stitchwort as well? Or
yeah,
yeah, that
yeah,
those colours together with
yeah.
the
The
greens,
stitch walk
obviously.
remind me of the like 1960s
Ah,
flower. Poof, poof, poof. They're like this pop up. They're impeccably splayed and ready for some like go-go dancing and stuff. They bring me a lot of joy. Stitchwort. I
yeah,
like.
they're very pretty. They really are. So you're in the woods.
Mm,
This is where you live, apparently.
yeah. So I'm on year. I've done 3 winters.
Right. That's quite important, isn't it? That it's the winters that you reference,
Mm,
because that really kind of that's the test,
yeah,
really, isn't it? The winter. Yeah.
yeah. And each winter something's a bit easier, but then something else is broken. So it's also, or my desire for more luxury has increased. um, and it's just me. It's um, yeah, me and the land.
Yeah.
So I dreamed of the off-grid life, but for a really long time. I kind of grew up in alternative communities up to a certain point in childhood, and the point where that changed, things were never as good again. So I think I've had always the need to seek an alternative community, and I never expected that alternative community to be me and the relationship I formed with the land. I think we all, or many people, are like, oh, how I connect with the land, how I connect with nature, how I, um, you know, this this frisson and gift. Um, but it's my key relationship. It's my primary relationship, and yeah, but only 3 years, and I'm aware that you're 18 years old and I'm 3.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's just amazing to hear
Potty
somebody
training, forgive
somebody
me.
yeah, potty training. Yeah. That's all right. That's all right. Well, I'm patient. So, I've had
Yeah,
two young daughters in my time that are now growing up, but yeah, I know all about that. So that's okay. Yeah, it's just really, as you're talking, it's really wonderful for me to hear somebody describing what I know intimately myself, and that is this primary relationship
yeah,
with place like that. I have exactly the same experience, and it's a love affair completely. I fell in love with this place and I'm still in love with it, and it deepens in some ways. Well, it obviously it's different from human relationships, but it it's also very similar in terms of how I feel about it. I've loved people and I love people and I love the land in a similar way, even though it's a very different thing.
I don't know how much proximity you have with other people. Um, so I'm here in an area I don't know. I moved just before a global phenomenon. Whoa, what is this? And yeah, I'm not embedded in a town. I'm not embedded in a work community, as well as like a cultural community. I've not found a click in yet, you know. So yeah, I spend a lot of time here and by myself, and mostly it's been such an amazing opportunity to unwind everything, you know, and I wouldn't be alone in sort of saying, you know, life, I've taken some knocks and bruises through life, and it's all unraveled, and I'm left with how I am now is not a reaction to what someone said or what someone did, or all those things. What I'm dealing with now is who I am and the behaviours I've set up, and habitually over time due to prior environments, and kind of like going, oh, I can undo these, I can put some flex in here, a bit of space, a little bit of awareness, and all that can change. And with this greater diaphragm, I can be more myself, like truly myself. And there have been points in my life where my mojo has been high. Let's put it at that. And I've been a tour de force of something or other. And there've been times where the opposite is true. And it's absolutely a growing space. It's absolutely a time, an era to kind of go, time is different here. Time is different here. You know, it's overtly the seasons, overtly the necessity to deal with being warm, plan with being warm, and the light's gone, right? Don't do the building project now. Just don't. It tools down. And those, you know, raw basics have really taught me to kind of go, okay, let go of that goal being, well, by year 3 I will have achieved this, and by year 5, and my networking skills will have accrued this amazing sort of skill set that just, you know, just, I don't even have to ask. People are just, can I? And I'm like, sure. Those things will happen. You know, I've not let go of them. I've just loosened significantly. And I think being uptight was probably a characteristic I had before. So it's been good for me. It's been good for me. Yeah.
Do you think that was that there was or was there an unconscious or a conscious part of you that came to the woods to do this process, do you think?
I knew.
You knew.
For the yes, this is happening, but this would be the next level of healing. I mean, I think, I don't know, you can talk very codedly about sort of traumatic childhoods and things like that, and it is very difficult to choose an appropriate word. But yeah, and I dealt with it in times of my life, and a little bit of counselling here, some like workshop vibrations, moving on, meeting different people, seeing, learning, and I've been reasonably open to progressing, but I think I got so far, and I wasn't attracted to any models before me to do that. And I read something by a director. I think he did This Is England. I can't remember his name. And he was making a film. And this is shortly before I got the S about here. And he was talking about the film and making the film. And he just went, okay, this has been the experience which has reset all of that. Totally reset that. Because I think we just cope and we wear them and we do our best. And but yeah, I think the experience of arriving here unexpectedly due to like weather, due to like sort of family situations, it was entropy on a mad level. You know, what was a pathway was now I could see washing down the river. You know, trees were like I was just kind of going, you know, and yeah, I'm ready for a workload, and then suddenly this other level of workload happens of going, whoa, whoa, this is big, and overwhelming. So I arrived and I was intensely overwhelmed, and I made a photo that winter. It was possibly January time, and I'd split a log with one of those. Are they called Geronimo Dynamo? They're kind of these pinhead things that
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah,
try to
like a
split
kind of
knotted wood.
mole. Yeah,
And it was jammed there. It wasn't doing much good. And I took a photo of it, and I overlaid it with a photo of my face, kind of just kind of washed and possibly numb, but soft. Not an overt or explicit surrender to it, but soft enough to be very close to that place. And I layered the two, and the kind of split to surrender to, well, I'm choosing to stay. I'm staying. And there were advice from friends in the town where I used to live, were just going, what you could do is just rent somewhere for 6 months for winter, and you know, and just fix a few things. I'm like, no, yeah, I'm doing this. I'm here. I'm here for the ride, and I've hurt myself and cut myself. I've been so cold at times, or I've been warm in front of the fire, but then felt the skin on my buttocks and gone, that's really cold. That's cold. This, okay, I've something's not quite right here, but and yeah, I'm a skill built, but I'm still at that potty training stage. I'm almost literally, there's I have a compost toilet, and I've emptied up that first chamber. I wrote a piece about kind of relating to grief composting as well, because those were the first poos of arriving here. of like the innocence before the before the fire and the da-da, and those innocent poos. And so I was looking at, and parts of it had composted, and there were like stratas of non-composted material. So I was kind of like, you know, so I'm still refining those, you know, important base structures still of composting my poo, keeping warm, keeping. But yeah, lots of things, lots of skills are a lot better. I think it's my advice to people who want to do it is just be prepared to learn, and you can prep. You won't have prepped enough. I don't think anyone will have prepped enough. You can't, because you don't know the experience. And all the skills you have are really great, but expect those to expand and grow and challenge, because the environment's different, because the materials are different, because you are, I think, ideally working with materials that are available close by, um, and I some of my most of my attitude towards what I'm building here is, when I'm gone, I don't need to write a letter to anyone and go, oh yeah, that bit's plastic, like watch out, make sure that doesn't wash down the river. It's all, stone, wood, maybe some metal, and it can all collapse and biodegrade, and it's fine. It will do that. So yeah, that's the philosophy that feels true and keeps as much as possible. I think there are a couple of spaces of going, okay, I've got this massive plastic sheet here. I'll use it for now, but generally, so yeah, I've lost the point, my thread. Saying here, I think it rooted from I'm 3, you're 18, and that literal potty training thing, and being early stages, and the comfort with time, comfort of accepting. Yeah, I'm still new. I'm still a kid at this, and not to expect too much of myself, because I'm one person who's not a builder. I'm not a builder. I'm not a conservationist. I'm not a, any of those things. I'm, when it comes to like the mapping, the soil pHs, geology, the plant flora and fauna, the tree count, I'm having a rough go, and that's okay.
That's so interesting, because that view that that's how you know a place or understand it through this scientific eye, I found from living, it has some use, but it's a very small percentage of usefulness compared to lived experience. And I wonder if you find this, have a similar experience. But for me, it's always been about, I'll have all these ideas and then I'll take them into the world, and the world will tell me whether they're real or not.
Yeah,
And after having done that a few times at the beginning here, I very quickly learned to shut up and listen and stop telling it, or spewing out my ideas or imaginations, and just listen to it, because it tells you everything you need to know all the time if you can sit
yeah,
and listen.
yeah. So
It will
I'm
show it will show
reconstructing.
and reveal, things.
I'm reconstructing a bridge, and it will
Mm.
be the third configuration since I've been here. Such as the level of entropy by the river, and the landscape change and transformation, that I know the bridge was kind of high up here once upon a time, then they kind of moved it to over here, and then it kind of come here. So I'm building a new position, deconstructing it, and choosing an angle, choosing a height, choosing the placement, and observing, like, when it really rains, where's the water flowing and pushing out of the land, it's all volatile land. There isn't a point of going, well, that's stable. Put one end of the bridge where the land is stable and the other end of the bridge where the land is stable. Neither option is available. So it's yeah, it's a lot of reading and observations, and I think, so observing is something I've always done, even from being very little. I spoke my first words at 3.5, and I was taken to the doctors and child psychologists and things. And she's watching, she's taking it in and watching, just hasn't anything to say yet. When I did speak, I said please and thank you. Had it all going on. So, so actually, when it comes to bringing skills, some people may bring really well progressed and experienced building skills. and others like myself may just be, I'm very comfortable being in an observant state. I'm very comfortable at going, well, here's an idea, question it, prod it, watch again, go back with that plan, watch again, and because it's an interesting thing, human intervention with the land. But the more comforts that I desire, you know, sort of hot water and stuff like that, the more I've got to construct a space for having hot water with drainage, and make sure the drainage is filtered, you know, all those kind of things. And it's all intervention, it's all footprint, and where you source materials is a footprint already. So it's really nice to have the space and time to consider those. And I think something that I've been aware of, I mean, being female, I've had a lot of people just making suggestions, just giving me some advice without asking questions. And that's kind of really attracted to like this conversation, because the essence is based on questioning and queries and kind of sharing, rather than this is an opportunity for you to tell me how to do it right.
Sure.
Because you have more experience than me. It's true. It's so,
Yeah, but not there, and none of that is relevant. I mean, it's useful for particular tasks if somebody comes, like you're saying, if someone comes along
yeah,
and they're a very skilled, stonemason or bricklayer, then they can do those things really quickly and well, and you can learn a lot from just spending a day with someone like that.
absolutely.
But
Yeah,
nobody knows that place better than you. Nobody else alive. 3 years, you've been there 3 years, but that's 3 years. There's nobody who knows that bit of land as well as you.
yeah.
So you have that kind of general context-based wisdom and knowledge that's growing obviously all the time. And
But
and
the
the
bit
more
that's
you're,
missing, which might be to being a lone female here, is the bit where someone say, what you need is, and I was like, why not ask me what I'm doing? Ask me what my plan is, and go, that's interesting. Maybe refine this, or is this bit gonna work, or let's discuss that, or so I get just landing in, and have this one guy come help, which is wonderful, and I don't get a lot of people helping, so I don't know. It's been good just seeing what I can do by myself, with as someone who's 50 years old, who's not really done this before. Just going, okay, yeah, I can move rocks, I'm really good. I'm not very good at post knocking. I'm not so good at that, I can wreck a post. And yeah, I've learned that. But I'm good at moving rocks. And yeah, this guy came to help, and I was like, okay, so the plan is you're gonna start from there, there. And he just kind of barely looked up at me and just went, I'm just gonna do what I think is right. And he didn't discuss that, he just did what he thought was right. And I've had, yeah, other people say, I'll just get some mini diggers in, what you need is da 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 da. And I'm like, it's, there's a quality of advice. So I've got weird boundaries about being here, and weird boundaries with people, and weird boundaries with yeah, quite, I suppose, some sensitive points. So I'm here, there's, I don't know, there is a housing estate not far away, there is a very popular dog walking path not so far away, but there's also a big farmyard over there and a big farmyard over there. So there's loads of space and protective, secret safety, but there's also people walk by, or people walk through, and cans of lager and loads of dogs. And hey, what's going on here? So my boundaries are important here. Boundaries in life are a little bit complicated by the way people discuss things with me. So if it's based on questioning, I'm really, really comfortable as that as an introduction to advice and learning.
Okay. Yeah.
Someone's going to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Hackles up. But that thing that you were saying before about you really like people, but your prime relationship is the land, as you know, we shared that. I adore people. I absolutely adore people. I mean, there's some people I will meet, whether they're friends I haven't seen for a while or new people, and it's just like, I'll be astounded because I'm not used to people. And so as long as they're not telling me what to do, you know, yeah, people are, it's just wonderfully beautiful potentially, you know, and really enjoying that aspect of that celebration. I go to the launderette, and it's quite a distance away. There isn't one sort of locally, and bit of a day trip. And it's my talking shop, and it's like all the wastrels from the area, and there's yeah, the waifs and strays, the outsiders, you know, whether it's just economically, mentally, you know, just we're programmed differently. So it's kind of like, in a way, they're my people as well. And I've had some really profound conversations. So like every 2 weeks, I'll make a date of it to ask questions, to go and ask questions, and discover. And it's kind of working really well. Events, you know, because doing your laundry is quite dull. So I think adding the glow of the discovery of people, and yeah, I met a guy who told me there are actually 13 continents. That the extra continents are secret and they keep it from us. Showed me a map and everything. It's just
really?
like, where's this map from? Oh, someone sent it to me. So there's no like, you know. So he's like, what are they doing with the resources on these continents? You know?
Yeah. Wow.
What is their policy? What is their water policy in these extra continents? Good question.
Very good questions. Wow.
How? What an idea. What if our planet was just half our planet? Okay, that's an interesting thing to ponder. Open your mind. There's someone ask questions, and you may have your mind wrenched in a kind of awkward tear, or pleasantly unbuttoned, you know.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, laundrettes are quite relaxing places. I always found them, there's something quite, they're like, they have a sort of peace about them, a bit like a church, but much warmer and softer, and you know, more human, not cold stone and preaching. But there's a similarity. There's something, and maybe they're just more social. They're like a public. They're one of the few places that remain that are kind of public spaces in a way where people can just chat to people they don't know, or
yeah,
there can't be many left, because there was one here when I moved here which I used, but it shut down. Um, and I don't know whether that's the case elsewhere, but I imagine there isn't so much of a demand. But maybe that will come back again now.
Washing machine units like outside of
that's it.
petrol stations and supermarkets, yeah, and that isn't like a church.
No.
It's more an edifice or a skyscraper where, you know, you're looking at, well, there's a the world of finance. This is why, that kind of alien kind of world of an economy which is intangible. And yeah, so, but I'll very much consider the phrase "it's like a church" next time I go to the launderette. Yeah, yeah.
But do you find that you're sort of you kind of get your fix of people when you go there, like, because are you spending a lot of time there on your own, or are there people coming to visit help a lot, or?
It's very changeable.
Mm.
It's very changeable, and I think now at this moment in time I'm focusing on making connections with people and removing all aspects that I am definitely someone who would appreciate a hand. That element of it's not even on the back burner. Like, the priority for me when I'm making connections is that moment, that discovery. And yeah, so I've really removed it, because I think the first couple of years me being here, there were some strange dynamics, being a single female, and there's a breed of men who just like to tell me how healthy they are, how much they go to the gym, and how great I could be for their life, and how much they could help me, and they sort of don't turn up. I'm just like, oh, you know what? Screw all that. I'll do the bloody work myself, and I'll just go out and meet people. I just need to plod on and just do this myself. And occasionally I'll just put out, just remind people I am up if you want for some help. Yeah. So keeping it super casual at the moment. I think that may change as summer solstice after summer solstice, which is the escalator going down to winter, the calendar, the ticking, the kind of descending of the light, the kind of like, okay, check, how much do I need to do? So yeah, that may change for this part of the year. And also it's really interesting to see what you can do in solitude. And I'm not one of these remarkable people who can build a kingdom, an empire like that. It's really slow work. It's really, really slow. And that's okay. It's all okay. It's really okay that I'm not the ideal skill set for being here. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay that actually one of my top priorities isn't hot water, it's poetry. It's kind of like, right, and what is my relationship to this plant? How can I describe it, name it? What is, I think I compare it to, I was reading up on this herbal medicine course like several years ago, and remember them saying, so over the course of the year we'll investigate 6 plants. And I was like, a year, 6 plants, a year to learn 6 plants? That sounds rubbish. And it costs over £1,000 to learn about 6 plants. But actually, it takes longer. It takes longer. And in the 6 whole plants in the year, to know really well is a lot. That's a lot. So that's changed, and being comfortable with that, being comfortable with the increment being, I mean, the first huge rock I built. So I've mentioned entropy. Basically, I've got a little cabin on a riverbank, and the riverbank just went. The foundations were exposed and twisted, so I've had to reinforce the foundations, recreate a riverbank out of 7 tiers of stonework, and move the river from undercutting, heading to the. Am I on there? Yeah. Heading to the cabin, under the cabin, and redirect the river that way by a distance of about 15 foot by removing approximately 200 tons of clay, sand, and rock from the opposing riverbank. And yeah,
Would it not be easier to move the cabin?
people say that, but I guess I'm a bit intimidated by.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, nothing's flat
Well,
here.
200 tons of rock sounds pretty intimidating to me.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, some of it's just fallen in. You know, you can just undercut it, and then it would just wait for weather, and then it would just collapse in. And but yeah, I'm now kind of securing the change. So yeah, 3 winters, my third summer, and that's done. So when I moved here, I went on to this really strange composting course, and in Leeds, um, it was really strange because there was like really dense trees growing in this area, and there was one tree standing solitary with loads of space around it, and it looks about 5 years old. And he used that one tree to demonstrate how to cut a tree, and I'm like, not that tree. No, not that one. Look at all these dense ones. You know, it's just like it just seems strange. It seemed counter to my intuition anyway. But I met someone there who was, and I perhaps recognised the state of shock I was in at the time, having moved here and had entropy in all areas of my life. And perhaps you kind of recognised that kind of like numbness, you know, kind of like the kind of yeah. And he said, was it 3 years? It took him 3 years to build a bike trail, and I was like, it seems such a long time. And it's like 3 years of persistent. He was going to build this like bike trail so he could like woo, fly, land, ba-dum, 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 and do tricks or whatever. Feel the speed, feel the energy of it all. And he sort of indicated it was to fix himself. You know, to fix himself to make a bike trail equal really, whether he knew it at the time. And but he went through those 3 years and he did finish, and there was time to look back, and it is now really well used by other people, and that process has happened. So he's got that perspective on it. But definitely at the time, as he was saying it, it felt like this is really important information that you're getting here. To make a path took one man 3 years of persistence, and you know, to the edges of himself. I kind of like, yeah, and yeah, I didn't necessarily move here imagining 18 years. Yeah, 5, 10, something like that. I'd like 10 if I can. If I can get enough luxuries to ease the effects of aging.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have to say, hot water, one of the greatest moments of my life was the day that I first had hot running water. And that
yeah.
was actually, I think that was 3 years in for me.
Okay.
But I'd just been, going around to people's houses for baths and just heating water on the fire to wash with and all of that. And you all know that very well.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a river. You see, I would be in the cold river every morning anyway. That would be my thing. That's a wonderful thing you've got to
It
have
is.
a river
There's
like.
waterfalls.
Oh
How
wow.
Yeah, they get you really clean. Like a river's, you kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
depending how deep it is. Um, but the waterfall, that's like the car wash of
yeah.
thing, you
Wow.
know. It's yeah, the rotating bubbles, aerated bubbles of flow. It's super fresh.
Yeah,
Um,
especially on a February morning, right? Super
yeah,
fresh.
I'm a softie. I'm a softie.
Okay.
I will get a lot of baths and showers from friends' houses during winter, and you know, it's occasional. Um, but yeah, so March, end of March is probably my trepidation back into the waterfalls, and it's so cold.
Yeah.
And the ideal waterfall experience is kind of get in, get ever so cold, and then dry in the sun. Just like that feels great. The sun feels great. The cold feels great. There's energetic zzz.
Hmm.
The zzz and the buzz is resting into me, and that's the perfect experience. And I like that. And the one where you get really really cold and you're really like, oh, that's amazing, and you can't get warm again
Yeah. Yeah,
is really,
that's when you need a sauna or something in the winter,
yeah, yeah.
which
I mean,
is
all those things
yeah.
are. Do you have a sauna?
No, but
No.
it's on my list. It is on my
Yeah,
list. I mean, the huge, ever expanding list. But
yeah. Is ever expanding?
well,
It's
yeah.
not now so refined that you can.
No, well, I think that's perhaps the nature of me as well. We create our own lists. It's nowhere is it written that the list needs to be written at all.
No.
But it seems to be
Yeah.
built into me. Although I have to say, we're the same age. I have to say, as I've got older, the motivation to create these huge lists and tasks for myself is definitely waning.
Yeah.
I don't need to, I could do all of that when I was 30 something, I
Yeah.
could just endlessly work and make and do and do. But yeah, I'm trying to wise up now.
Yeah.
I mean, I do a lot physically still because it feels good to do that as well. And it's good, it does keep me healthy being physically active. But yeah, there's definitely a change has happened with that. But a sauna, yeah, a sauna, I feel like that's the one thing that would transform the winter that I don't have. To be able to get that intense dry heat in the deep, deep cold of winter, I feel
Yeah.
would
And
be
wetter
so.
the water as well. The water vapor that seeps in. So I've got with my photography certain eras based on what phone I had. Um, and my first era was the Fairphone 2, and I was so pleased I gave it a go. I was so pleased because um, everything I knew about it was just a thumbs up. But it couldn't handle the water vapor here. This is Fairphone 2. I don't know if the latest model is much better. I imagine it will have improved, but at the time, and so never mind me dropping it in a ditch or, you know, just, yeah, yeah, all those uh-oh moments, just the water vapor
Yeah, the
that,
dampness. Hmm.
yeah, that was a shock, I think.
Because you're up in the north, so you definitely get more rain, right, where you are
Yeah.
than I do,
So
I guess.
there's a river at the bottom of this valley I live in, and the water runs off down. The river rises and gets fast, and it rains a lot. It's Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, uh,
Okay.
um, and um, yeah, yeah, there's a lot of water seeing, and yeah, there's spring water like popping out of different bits of the hillside, and like small tributaries, and um, yeah, water.
What's interesting for me is that you've got rock there that you can use.
Mm,
That's a very because I'm thinking of a sort of wooden sauna. Obviously, I've got trees that I've
yeah,
the bit that I look after here. I have woodland as part of it. So, I have that resource, but I don't have any
So
rock.
you've got, I mean, I don't know.
I don't own it either. I'm a tenant too, and
Yeah,
basically I have
yeah.
a very sympathetic landowner who's in the similar. It sounds like a similar thing. Who's basically agreed that I can be here for as long as I want, and I am like vastly increasing the value of this place with all the work I've done, and it's a good exchange. We both get something really good from it. And this patch is about 15 acres in total. So
And
it's
is
in the
it all?
woods. Well, it's part of it. I have a small field where I put an orchard in, um, which it's probably just under 2 acres is a field. The rest of it is woodland. So
So there's an abundance of wood. I mean, how much do you
yeah,
think
it's
about
enough. There's
planting?
enough for me to cut wood for firewood. I'm creating coppiced areas for the firewood cycle. And
Yeah,
the part of it is old forestry plantations, so they're big, tall Corsican pines, so there's timber,
yeah,
material as well.
yeah.
There's a mix of things, but yeah, it's but rock, yeah, rock. Thinking of saunas, thinking of like something in
Mm,
the earth with using rock, but of course you need to have a house before you can start building. The house needs to be done first. There's priorities, right?
yeah, yeah.
or
Um,
even or even a kind of, a more temporary thing. uh, Yeah, a sort of, I don't know if you've ever made benders with hazel sticks and,
I
just
have a long
covering.
time ago. Yeah,
Yeah, as a sauna, I mean, as just a way to have, and you could use the rocks, couldn't you? You could heat the rocks in the fire and do it that way, like a sweat lodge
yeah,
would.
yeah,
Um, I'd that's
yeah.
exciting.
I
The
mean,
prospect.
obviously, starting with the point you could flatten a piece of land to make it accessible. Like this is
Oh,
kind
are
of this
you
is
totally on a
marshy.
slope? Okay.
Yeah, this is kind of marshy and soggy. It's lovely here. I love the sunlight on this kind of strip. Um, but yeah, it's probably and winter it's knee high. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, okay.
it's
Right.
funny. Walking down here is funny. Um, but yeah, yeah. I thank you for that. I'll it can be really simple and it can be a temporary one. And I think there's
Yeah.
an area where I've got an outdoor workshop growing, and it started with a little shed for the wood pile, and I expanded that for firewood wood to artwood on the other side, so I could separate it and wouldn't get confused. I would not burn that beautiful piece of wood that I want to carve and make something from. So that separation. And then I kind of got canopy to extend it to those big chunks that are just not worth cutting because I've got so many knots in. So just leave them for firewood, outdoor firewood, and
Yeah.
or so different piles of wood. And then the canopy kind of grew to, oh, it's nice to sit here because it's not far from the cabin, and you know, whew, rest yourself before indoors. And yeah, so it's becoming itself, it's informing itself, and I'll just the flat bit, I'll kind of mattock another half square meter of flatness and kind of, okay, that's a bit better. Okay, because it's also in the tree, so each little increment is a relationship with the trees and the roots and the way the water flows and falls and travels and where it travels. Um, so all of those things um, are very subtle. So here there are some ancient trees and there's loads and loads of very young sub 20-year-old trees. So I'd say, I don't know, ancient trees, 100, 150 ancient trees, and young trees, 2000.
So what's your kind of main ancient tree then? Oaks and ash, or what have you got there?
Um, okay, let me think about that. Um, Oaks Beach, the giant
Beach.
beach giants just along here, and there's one I'm particularly, I feel very conversational with. I ask it questions and it kind of replies in vowels. It doesn't specifically say anything articulate. It kind of, I get a sense of vowels coming back at me. It's too mature to bother with consonants and
Yeah.
things like
And
that. Um, but I nonetheless feel really like the ancientness of it and how giant it is, um, and I don't know how fickle a life I am compared to the life it's seen come and go and come and go, and yeah, so it's kind of nice to have that that chat, that sense of conversation. um
do you remember how you first met it, or what drew you to that particular tree?
um, so it's the largest tree proximate to the cabin, and one of the things I took up when the first level entry level entry happened was um, just stinging and following, like if a bird rose, maybe my pitch would rise, and if a tree kind of wobbles, maybe I'd add that to my song. So no words, no kind of meaning, very much conducted by nature, and it was the main. I wouldn't say it's not audience is entirely wrong a word. Um, the main companion on that experience. Um, and again, as I walk down to the woods, there's this array of beech trees, and that one, as I say, is closest to the path where I get to the cabin. So as I approach the land, there's like hello, 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 and then hello, 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 hello. All those there's individual hellos and arrays of hellos, as in a way what I'm doing is welcoming myself home. However, yeah, it's also the joy to be back, a whole 2 hours away. Sometimes a few days, but not very often, Yeah.
Mm.
So proximity, um, and imagine over time and with different activities where I'm making those bonds and connections and learning and observations, um, they will have covered more of the 7 acres. But there's definitely, say, like in permaculture speaking, where you're looking at your zone 0, your zone 1, 2, 3. There's most familiarity there because that's where I've dug most.
Mm.
That's where I've observed most. That's where I've needed to interact most. And there's larger parts of the woodland which, to me, are just a conservation area for them to do as they choose, really, or as nature, let nature be its own course. And there's other areas which are to be more coppice, more and like tree nursery, this, that, and the other. The more kind of functional, but most of it is to be itself and to watch it mature. But of the young trees, there's a lot of birch, and which is fine, but no, I really like hazel. hazel, really useful. And but I've not planted in it yet. I'm still watching it. I'm still watching the life cycle of the tree because yeah, they get so big and then they rot. And it's really wet here, so most of the trees are massively mossy. There's some examples near me, but so it's the equivalent of a temperate rainforest
Mm.
uh, because the like epiphytes, like the things that grow on things, like your moss, your lichen, blah 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 blah. And so yeah, so there's just loads of layers of things that I've noticed but I haven't learned yet, and I'm looking forward to all those years as I know this. I will have written a poem about loads of stuff by the time I've been here 10 years. I will have had that relationship, but the first things I've had relationships with are pulling the brambles out so then I can flatten a bit of build a woodshed. And so the brambles are the first thing to like cut me and hurt me, and for me to notice in that way. And so yeah, it's really early days, and yeah, I'm big into worms at the moment. So anyone who wants to send me a worm documentary, yeah, I'd be up for that. Um, and so and again, this composting. So I've got this sculpture from a hawthorn. It's a really intricate grow. So I've just got a segment of this hawthorn, maybe about 10 years old, 8, 10 years old. And I've not done much to it at all. It's just a little clip here, a little clip there, a bit of sanding, and it looks like an anatomical heart. Well, I hope it does. To me, it does. So I'm going to drill holes and making these fleece worms so that I do grief composting. And I think for me, that'll be the point of being able to look back on my first 3 years and the processes that I've gone through, the emotional processes I've gone through. And so, yeah, I take a lot of selfies, and part of the drive to do that has been fundamentally a diary, without having to like take words, write it down, name it, describe it, comprehend it.
Mm-hmm.
Photo of whatever state I'm in, layered with other things that have happened that week, whether I've made a fire and it's a photo of the embers, whether the stitch wart's out, and it's those kind of things, and they become layered. And these are those moments. So yeah, I feel at this moment in time, I'm kind of that's been the chapter, and I'm arriving at another level, even though I don't have all hot water yet. Yeah. So do you get people kind of coming with a lot of set ideas about what living in the woods will be like, and kind of disappointed that you've got a really nice setup? You're not
Well,
a caveman?
yeah, I suppose because I had a building to play with from the very start, an old forestry shed, um, which was kind of semi-derelict. It was just a tin shed on a wooden frame, but it had a concrete pad for floor, and it had running water, which is a massive, it was plumbed in, no electricity, but running water. So, um, yeah, so it's not in that sense. I suppose it took a while for it to become fairly civilized. It was a bit like camping inside a building, a derelict building at first, but bit by bit, because I was always making bits, adding bits, and putting in my Rayburn, which you can see behind here, and
Yeah.
that was heating the fire, the hot water, and things like that. So it became more and more like a recognizable house for people, so less of a shock in that sense. Um, but I think there's always it's all I mean, obviously people always bring themselves, and whenever they're asking you questions, they're always talking about themselves in a way, because it's like, how can you be here at night on your own in the dark, whereas for me it's like,
I
this is
love
the
that question.
safest place,
It's not
this is the
always
safest
easy.
place to be,
Say that again.
I say it's the safest place to be, because everyone else is afraid to be here. So I know that it's just me and the animals and the trees. So I actually feel really safe at night walking around the
Yeah.
woods. Um, and it's something you said really early on at the start, which was, or that triggered a reminder in me, was that I never feel lonely in the woods. But loneliness always comes in the context of other people. Either somebody I want to see isn't there, or being around people can be quite lonely making for me. But there's so much life here, there's so much community in animals and plants and trees and
Have
weather and
you
all of it.
have you fallen in love with yourself on another level?
I think for me that's a much slower process, but it is happening. But it's
Mhm.
really slow. That's like the deepest layer for me, probably. And I think the nature and me recognizing how I'm an inseparable part of it, and the fact that I so easily love the nature, is maybe the gateway to that. It's kind of showing me, you're just this, so it's easy for you to love yourself too if you want. So yeah, it's an interesting question. I think maybe it's a very slow journey towards that. That
Mm. I think
Yeah.
the fact that I can spend so much time by myself, not necessarily with, well, I've got this bridge to build, and there's stuff to do, and fetch the water, the wood, blah, 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 wash my stuff, must eat, remember, um, and yeah, those things are true, but nonetheless, I think I've really enjoyed my company. I've I've I enjoy the things that I'm seeing, and the things they remind me of, and that, I don't know, probably on a daily level, I will get the giggles because I thought of something funny, and I'll just set myself off and just giggle away, and it's really nice. And that actually, once I've loosened up all the angst of the world, um, I'm a nice person. Actually, it's the root of everything is nice, and it comes out wrong many a time. It
Hmm.
lands badly often. Well, not often, not more often than not, but it's not the grace of transmitting who I am is not necessarily there. Um, but
That sounds familiar.
I know that for a fact. I'm not confused about my motivations. I think before I was maybe confused about my motivations because actually, in one job, I didn't want to be a temporary worker. I wanted them to recognise that actually I'm tip top, and that to give me a proper long lasting contract. In the other job, blah blah blah, or I wanted, I don't know, just someone to discover my art and go, that's brilliant. You go home. We'll have a word with Saatchi. Just don't, just have a cup of tea. We'll sort that out.
Hmm.
I was kind of this angsty wanting, and so I didn't know for sure if the essence of my motivations were all right, and I know for sure that they are. And admittedly, a lot of it is self-centered. I'm doing me here. It's massively about myself. I can reduce the complications because I'm not feeding anyone else. I'm not pairing their socks. I'm not, which I'm glad I'm not doing. It's one of ugh. I hated pairing other people's socks. But anyway, aside from that, and it just the complications of frequency of people as well. You know, it's very self and land. It's very expansive, but very self era chapter of observing, and it's kind of ironic, but in as much as I say I've got 7 acres, and sometimes there's bunches of lads come, so I've got to defend 7 acres and have the presence and the grace to be fierce enough, the appropriate level of, you're in the wrong place, time to go, and with not a tremor, and to be sit in that my personal boundaries are 7 acres big. I've never had that opportunity to do that. At first it was very difficult because right to roam, it's something that's really important, and the right to have an opportunity like this, like we've both not had to mortgage our left foot to have an opportunity to explore ourselves through perspective of nature, and I think that's why I kind of anthropomorphized a lot of the connections with nature, and like an emotional sensual relationship with various plants or animals, but yeah, I think it would be nice if lots of people could take time out a lot more, and there were places where you go, I'm having 2 months off in a year, and I'm not having to worry about this, that, and the other, or the idea of being off, stepping out, having choice over your time. I'm super busy. It's not like today I'm just going to laze around. I have restful days and they're really important. But yeah, so I know how privileged I am to have this. I think there should be more of this. It should be not an object of money and meritocracy or any of those things. As I say, the meritocracy of having the skills and the power to be able to build these things. You don't need that. You don't need. It's the right time for you to be in an experience like that, and that's enough. Yeah, you're seeking it. Here it is. And to not qualify ourselves as entitled to step out, step away, and look for sense in something as nice as a natural environment, So yeah.
And is there any sort of or how do you, if at all, because you say this is very much an era of yourself and that exploration in relation to the woods, do you have any kind of thoughts, or does your perspective go further out to what you're witnessing happening in the world at large or in the culture at large, and what your particular journey at the moment is in relation to that bigger thing? Is there any conversation there in your thoughts? Or
yeah there's a few levels. I think politically, like as a nation, I'm furious. Globally, the global machinations that entrap national politics, I'm furious. none of it in my name. I had the radio on. I listened to local elections. I listened to the point where they go, we've been door to door and people are highly fearful and crippled and fearful of the crippling and ongoing crippling and detriment of the cost of living crisis. And then hours later, we won, we're winners, this is us, and we can look bright. And I'm like, whoa, you've instantly lost the connection of people going, okay, maybe you'll listen, maybe you'll hear us, maybe you'll go, we need a sustainable, growing, ongoing plan and strategy, that we're not always the bloody losers here. And then we're winning, woohoo! Just like, just wrong. So yeah, I'm outraged, and it's very, now it's quite easy to find travel through that and go, okay, well, I'm here now, and I know this is good, and I know it feels right for me to be here right now. I had plans for the land. I don't talk about them very much because everything's so slow, and by the time I get closer to realizing it, it may change. I have a trans son who's 23, and we've discussed the idea of having art residencies here. I mean, there's not sort of like parking or access or sort of things that you kind of go, oh, we can bring groups of people. It's just not that space. And there's only like a limited amount that could become accessible. So it has its physical limits as a space, you know. So we talk about art residencies and creating spaces where they're funded already, so it's not eliminating the meritocracy of having earned a place to have the opportunity to have a space for making art, whether it's music, words, things, and so that will take time. And to have much softer ways of people coming here. But again, looking at where we think balance can be, where we can touch the imbalance and contribute towards balance. So that there's that as the goal. Yeah, how political? Okay, the most political time in my life, actually, the most enjoyably political time in my life, was so I lived in Spain for like a 3-month period, and then a couple of months, and then a couple of weeks, and I'd pop back for weekends, and it was in the Barcelona area, and I discovered slow living, but they did it politically, so they had a bread house, and the people from the locale and the people of every different stripe, you know, it was surprising who turned up, would come every Monday, and they would make bread in the wood-fired oven and come together and kneading these big kind of guts of dough, and conversation, coming together, the slow lunch as the bread cooks, the very slow lunch, you know, and the bread would be sold locally to afford more materials, and I just saw how revolutionary that was as a politic. So something like that would be amazing. Whether that would work here, I'd kind of love that. I'm not at the stage to be reaching out there, because I'm at this moment in time discussing my 7-acre boundary. You know, Want to get to know me? I've got a 7-acre boundary. So I'm at that stage. So for me to be at the come make pan day, bum bum bum, there's got to be a significant evolution in who I am. Be there, but I will permanently be in love with the politics of community bread making. It was just, it cut through everything. Just it was life changing to kind of experience that. And at the same time, these same people were, I don't know, sort of clogging up supermarket aisles and, you know, stopping all commerce with a protest or doing like radical circus, and it was very colourful and seductive kind of community around there. But yeah, or there's things like, I don't know, yeah, community growing, all those kind of things, but who you reach and how you reach them. Where I live now is a lot of gated communities. Yeah, I've never lived somewhere with gated communities before. And when I do meet local people, and there's like, oh, which part do you live in? I go, oh, up there. I'm like, oh, big houses there. Oh, you know, single house gate. Yeah. So how some community bread making would work in this environment, I do wonder. But yeah, if I could do that evolution in myself, to be there, that would be one thought. Or if I could find an equivalent where I could keep myself and my cabin very, very private, and still welcome people, like the two. You know, I didn't feel like, okay, lots of people are seeing where this woman sleeps by herself in the woods every night. Yeah. It kind of like, ooh, yeah. Because as you say, it's not the nature that, I mean, nature wakes me up. The rain on the roof wakes me up. The crack of a stick can wake me up, or the thud of a tiny twig on the roof. The giant thundering of a twig on the roof in the middle of the night can wake me up. Or a change in the river. If the river suddenly kind of increases in volume, suddenly I can kind of feel a little rushing. And when I work out it's the river, I can kind of, okay, I can assimilate that. Occasionally I've woken up because people have been trying to smash the cabin in. So that's there, but it's very rare. It's super rare. So yeah, I've worked out what I would do in attempt to stand my ground in those situations. Whether it'd work, I don't know. But yeah, I have, and that's all I can do is just go, if that happened, I'd try this, you know. So
this is a really this is a hard thing for people, I feel, to fully understand what that means, to be threatened in that way, that your very basic home has this kind of threat, sort of unspecific general threat around. Yeah, I'm kind of like, I'm interested in that subject because it's a very hard thing to communicate to somebody who hasn't felt what that feels like.
On the daily level, though, I think you can translate that threat into other threats that people feel.
Okay.
So it ties in with the essence of a fight, flight, fawn, freeze.
Yeah, sure.
On a daily level, there's a choice, and if I kind of go, okay, I can hear voices, and I will. So as I say, it's a valley. There's a footpath. There's water down there. There's a hill up there. So there's kind of sound everywhere, you know. And if I could hear the slugs under my feet there would be complete surround sound, and sometimes there are voices as the footpath kind of comes close and the wind blows the voices. So like as an instinct, okay, or I'll hear a couple of bits of wood crack. Okay, what's that wood crack? So there is that gut, and the choice is to do whatever mental or actual physical processes are required to reach the point where you go, it's okay. And now I'm not to do that. I might alert for a second warning or something, but I'm not going to live in that state.
Sure.
And I'm not going to live in the state where, okay, I'm off for a couple of days and I'm going to be not knowing if the cabin's. So historically, the cabin's been burnt down before, attempted arson and windows smashed in, and so there's a level of sometimes it will happen. It will happen when it happens. It won't happen when I worry about it.
Sure.
Or it won't not happen because I worry about it more. Or my worry is completely outside of the idea if something is going to happen or not. And
and it, as you're talking, it reminds me of the way the animals are around. I look at the deer, and they're under this kind of threat all the time, and they deal with it very much in that way you've just described. It's like they're super alert and they're ready, but they know how to relax again straight away. It's like this, you can't live like that. So it kind of, and it maybe taps into just a very deeper animal part of our nature that remembers that's part of life, where suddenly you do have to be aware, but then you then return to the kind of stable.
You'd miss the immense beauty of it all if you were just like you'd miss the opportunity to play. And I think play's the best bit, and my best playfriend is me. And I have a lovely time playing and dressing up, or just fiddling and moving things, or imagining, or writing, or not any of those things. And if you're consumed with anxiety, but again, these things, I mean, I think when you're looking at well how can me and this experience therefore have some slight impact or effects on the fact that we need a revolution right now, that we really do need it, and then all in all, I don't know, but I hope that I think as well, reaching 50, I'm about to in a few years outlive my parents, the age they were when they died. So I've got this kind of like little nudge happening, like legacy. If you're to pass on a recipe, what is that recipe? What if you're to pass on a poem, what would that poem? What if you pass on your favorite book? What, all these things are, oh, do you remember that story? What do you know? Pass on what you know. And so I'm nudged by that. And I'm also really hopeful that who I am, the fact I grew up in a very urban environment, and have not expected or trained to be in this environment, and I'm delighted but surprised that I'm here, that I can find a different perspective to relate. So I wrote something in an article recently about that commonality, the Venn diagram, we have more in common than that divides us. So if you meet somebody who asks questions, you can find that commonality. If you find a kind of cultural group or a great crew, and just being there, you have a commonality. Just to function, you have a commonality. There's so many ways in which we can have a really wonderful, great, strong time with commonality. And when you're laid bare and it's an option of finding the commonality between yourself and nature, then it's kind of you're going to find some strange poems. And I just wonder if maybe there's some way in which I'm sort of knocking on how I talk about nature, or how, whether it's art or words or visuals, photography, edited photography, that I can discuss it in another way. That the fact I'm, a white woman of a certain age, I'm not aiming. If I were a meme, I wouldn't be in a velvet cloak hugging a tree, but the sentiment might be really similar. The sentiment of, actually, this has been vital. This bird song is just happiness juice.
Mm-hmm.
A nebulous, it's just happiness. It's lovely. It's really, really lovely. And to expand your eardrums to this enormous 360 is humbling. It's really humbling. I imagine like being in a giant Nepalese mountainscape where you're this small and the mountains are really, really big. And yeah, so I do hope that I can find maybe a slightly maybe punkier way or of going, this is nature, this is us, this this is vital, this is important, we are vital, we are important, and our heartbeat can be louder than our anxiety. Those things can be true. I'm early days still. I'm still potty training.
It's because I've been kind of reflecting on what was this all about? Why did I come here? None of it was anything I thought was going on, as is often the way. And just looking back, I realize, oh, it's this or it's that. And when I turn my thoughts to the kind of bigger picture, I feel like the process I've been going through here is what's being called forth from people right now.
Say that again.
So it's the process. I feel like the process that I've been through coming here and living here and learning and finding out and deepening that connection with place seems to me to be something that's being called for at this time from people. Like, it feels to me like the bigger living organism is kind of asking the human child to reconnect, because we became so disconnected and we went off into this world of our heads and imagination and technology, which are all kind of extensions of our minds, really. But we forgot that we had bodies. We forgot that we had hearts. We forgot that we're completely woven in to all the other life on earth. And if I try and make sense out of my process, it was one of leaving the culture behind, which I knew was deeply troubled and ill and losing its mind and maybe terminally ill, and trying to find some right way of being. And that all sounds a bit pretentious, but it it was just a really simple homecoming. Like, there is this amazing, beautiful, massive part of life that's right under our feet that we are a part of, and we need
I
to
think
make a relationship again.
if you go, you had the vital, you were drawn very vitally to come home to the woods, and someone who's a dancer will be drawn vitally to show dance, to show the body being body, to you know, we are many, and there are many true voices and true callings and truth of being human and truth of, actually, if we create a society which wasn't based on the things it's based on now, and you know, we change the value system, maybe we could reduce mental illness by you know, and we'd have the time to be there for each other, and yeah, so I think to consider myself or one person in isolation to kind of go their individual calling to have loads of land, loads of it, you know, I've got 7 whole acres here, but it's not all habitable, you know, in its current state, and you know, that's kind of could be seen as arrogant, but I kind of feel I asked the question to have an experience like this, and it took years and years and years, and then I kind of tripped over it, and it just went, oh, all right, and dragged me past the door, the finish line, and you're here now. And I just looked up from the gutter and went, I made it. And realised as the water was rising, I'd have to stand up, otherwise I'd drown. You know, so the calling and the homecoming, the yeah, as human beings, we're very dynamic. Those homecomings and the ways in which we can be alive and human are varied. And yes, you stand there, and you're right. You've had this experience already of 18 years, and it doesn't look like to end very soon. You know, this is, and you've got children who are born and raised. You've got a generational impact already set in motion happening here. And yeah, so what are the legacies? Would you go to looking at words? Would you go to, I don't know, are these podcasts part of you looking at some way of going, and now I can share this? Or where are you seeking? Oh,
Well, it looks like Alice got cut off. Maybe her battery died. So we may have a closing part to this, or we may not. Let's see what happens.